So, oh, Harvey's here already, but a couple of quick things. We're a little disorganized up here. This was not a free publication, so if you grab one of these, they're $15. And if you have one hidden somewhere, oh, you want that? Okay. They're $15. You can, if you want to write a check, you can do the Center for Poultry, or you can give it cash to my wife or whatever. There was only a few of them, but this is available, but it's not a freebie, all right? The chicken coop book is up here. I've had like 65 questions. If that's just for you to look at as well. And obviously Harvey's got like 600,000 copies of his book. And the goal was that you would each buy 5 of them. So I'm just kidding. But seriously, his book I carry with me when I can at workshops because his breeding section is awesome. And so he can't take all the credit because he has other mentors like Don Schreider does too. But it's a great book. It's very thorough. And of course then Pat has her books out there as well. And if you're a smaller flock like with the city chicks, that'd be a great book for you. Okay? A couple other things and I'll turn it over to Harvey. Poultry Press. If you want to get this paper today only, all right, you can $5 off the subscription if you fill this out and sign up for the subscription today. So you can't take this home and then Bill Wolf, the editor, says, hey, I got recommended by you and it was $5 short. Okay, you have to give them to me and we'll sponsor that $5, but it has to be today. So if you take it with you, you can do the public or the subscription, but it's full price when you leave here today. Okay? And remember the backyard poultry, I strongly encourage you. That card actually, I think, will enable you to get like the first subscription or first issue free. And then, you know, they're trying to get you to encourage you to do that as well. Lunch, just FYI, lunch will be after Harvey, and we're going to adjust a little bit. I want to make sure he has plenty of time here, but we're doing good on schedule. Feel free to, remember, because there was a line at the outhouse, if you feel like you need to go do that in the middle of a talk, feel free to get up and go deal with that if you need to.
And Jim, in that same vein, for the guys, they're after some adventurous women. I've set a bucket down in the barn. It's reasonably private, and I promise to dump it if it goes.
Good. All right. Harvey and I just met for the first time today, but I have great respect for his book, and a lot of folks that I'm friends with have respect for him, and so please give a warm OGS welcome for Harvey.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks to all of you who decided to spend your very valuable time to get together today and share some ideas about doing backyard poultry in more creative ways, more interesting, more fun ways. So Jim asked me to address some issues of facilities and feeding, so that's what we'll be talking about. Starting with the question of housing, and that's really pretty easy. Housing is pretty easy. I'll say 2 things about it. One is it can be very, very flexible. If you're starting with, and you're going to build your own, whatever is in the recycle pile begging to be used may dictate what you put together for the housing, because it really can be very flexible. And the second part is if you already have a shed or other facility on a place that could be converted to chicken housing, then save the expense of starting new. As long as the housing keeps the chickens dry in wet weather, keeps them out of the direct blast of the wind in cold weather, and protects from predators. Basically, you got it covered. So to be very flexible. So here's another housing for a small flock. I believe about 50 chickens, and you see a few guineas here. And I like to show pictures of chicken housing that has lots of snow in it, as you can see here, because it illustrates just how hardy our birds are, how cold hardy. We really don't have to think in terms of pampering. And so here is a shelter that's actually movable, but it's pretty substantial frame, so it doesn't get moved on a daily basis like some of the other shelters we will see. But it has a canvas tarp as a cover, which I like a lot better than these plastic tarps. They tend to shred in the wind, and a tough canvas tarp I think would be a better choice. And a lot of people in the age of high-tech plastic, a lot of people are taking advantage of those to use cook houses as shelter for the chickens, and especially in winter. I know a number of flocksters. That's my name for people like you and me to get real excited about keeping a flock of chickens. So I know a lot of flocksters who will put together a hook house as a temporary structure for the flock in the winter, and then come spring, take it apart and store it. And then maybe use that space to grow some of the garden crops that are heavy feeders and can use all of that fertility that the chickens have put in that flock. I'll give you the advanced down because we're going to see this is the middle of that hook house. And this is in British Columbia, by the way. And so it gets a lot colder there than here. But that's 18 inches of small grain hulls from a milling operation. Hulls as a byproduct, and as a deep litter. We'll come back to that very, very important topic. But my correspondent there said that even in the wintertime, you can put your finger down several inches in this deep litter, and it's warm to the touch. And so then when she takes this apart and stores it in the winter, as I said, she's got some place to start. In fact, maybe when she takes the chickens out, but before she's taking it down, maybe she'll use it to start those warm weather crops like tomatoes in that space. So let's constantly think about pulling everything together in one project, making one effort serve several different functions and needs.
I was very interested in doing something. I've seen that similar things to doing something like that, but how do you keep that secure? I have a problem with raccoons.
We will end in the north end of my greenhouse. My greenhouse is 20 by 48 feet, and so the far 8 feet I reserve for pens, and you can forward to see an individual pen, all set up for a small flock of chickens, and then this is a very important picture. This is just outside those chicken pens in the hook house, and it's a deeply mulched winter yard. Any kind of mulching materials, organic debris like leaves, spent crop plants, corn stalks, spoiled hay, and so forth. I've put down in a heavy layer in the space just outside that winter shelter, and this is their winter yard. Now, there's one difference between setting up something
just
like
a little
this.
louder? A little louder?
Right. There's a world of difference between a setup like this where you have a deep mulch on an outside yard where the birds are released on, and a static run that, I'm sure you've all seen them. Maybe some of you even haven't. If you do rethink having a bare expanse of dirt dotted with chicken coops. There are far too many chicken runs like that. It's very unhealthy for the birds. It's unpleasant for you, and I'm sure for them. And we're setting up a situation where all those chicken coops are just waiting for the next rain to start running for the sea. As Jim was talking about the big boys of the poultry industry, and well, you didn't mention, but we're all aware, they're doing a great job of polluting our streams and groundwater, and they don't need any help from us. So we can do a lot better, and one way is a deeply mulched yard rather than a bare yard, because that mulch is constantly, they're constantly working in the poops, and instead of running away as pollution, they're actually, with that material, turning into compost.
How often do you change that and clear that out?
The question was, how often do I change that out? And basically, in a deep litter system like this, the essential answer is never. And we'll get back to that on the deep litter inside the house. But in this particular application, that is actually on one of my 2 garden spaces. Come spring, that has turned into compost. And you know what garden preparation is for me? Laying out the garden beds, doing whatever raking I need to do, and planting.
What do you consider deep?
How deep is deep?
I'm sorry?
How deep is deep?
How deep is deep? You know, deep enough so that you don't have that bare dirt run. So it could be just a few inches up to a dozen inches. But I'm glad you asked that question, because if it's deep enough, wherever you live, to prevent freezing of the soil, guess what else? You get a feeding benefit from it. We're going to talk a lot about feeding, and when I talk about feeding, I'm talking about natural feeding. And in this case, if the ground is not frozen and there's that heavy, heavy organic duff, guess what? There's lots and lots of animal life like earthworms and slugs and other critters that are still alive and active at the soil line, and the birds will scratch down through that duff and get to them and be eating that high quality natural protein. So,
Wood chips okay for that?
are wood chips okay in an application like this? The basic answer is yes, but I have read warnings not to use aromatic wood chips like cedar and black walnut, and also don't use fresh green wood chips. You use wood chips that have aged. So now, I don't know that any of you are going to be interested in having a poultry house this big, and you might not be able to, you might not be inclined to make a poultry house that looks more like a horse barn than me. That's what I'm always hearing about my poultry house, my main poultry house. But the lady of the manor did dictate a certain look and a certain profile, so I will say no more. So we have, this is a 13 by 24 foot poultry house for my flock, and I raise more chickens than maybe some of you will be interested in. So rather than focusing on the size of this building, I want you to focus on some other very important points. So one thing about this design is that all 3 doorways in front, and there are 3, well, we'll get to the interior design after a while. But there are 3 doorways in front. Notice there's an outer solid doorway, and there is an inner door, light wooden frame with wire. That means that we can have the outer door open, but we can still keep the birds inside by keeping the mesh door closed. That way we get maximum ventilation and sunlight coming into the structure. Now, so that's the front of the structure. You can see that's a lot of ventilation.